Hello friends, welcome back to another video from Shomu's Biology. And in this antibiotic lecture, we are going to talk about quinolone antibiotics, particularly levofloxacin, which belongs to quinolone class of antibiotics. So what is levofloxacin, the levofloxacin or quinolone's general properties? We'll be seeing the levofloxacin use as well as the levofloxacin side effects. We'll also see the levofloxacin mechanism of action. So let's begin to talk about the quinolone class of antibiotic general properties first, okay? So the very first thing is that it's a type of the quinolones are type of the levofloxacin is a type of fluoroquinolone antibiotic category. Okay, a quinolone antibiotic is a member of large group of broad spectrum antibactericidals. So basically, bactericidal activity means killing of a bacteria. So this antibiotic can kill the bacteria. Okay, and they share a bicyclic code structure related to the substrate 4-quinolone. That's why we call them fluoroquinolones. Okay, and the second thing is that they are used in human and veterinary medicine to treat different kinds of bacterial infections. Particularly, we use them in animal husbandry as well as poultry production. Predominantly, we use that, and it is used to treat different kinds of bacterial infection of different locations of human body, like sinusitis, pneumonia, helicobacter pylori, urinary tract infection, UTIs, and chronic prostatitis. And these are the some of this gastroenteritis are also the target where this particular antibiotic can be used to kill the infective agents, but most commonly they are used in this pneumonia, sinusitis, helicobacter pylori and UTI infections, and broad spectrum they use in animal husbandry as well as in poultry production. So what are the classification of fluoroquinolones, classifications of this drug? And particularly if I say that there are three different segments, we'll be talking about generation, the name of the drug, and the spectrum that they use. So the first generation of this fluoroquinolone, example nalidixic acid, okay, and sinoxacin and nalidixic acid both. The spectrum is there mainly against gram negative bacteria, moderately against gram positive bacteria, and minimally systemic coverage are present. Minimal systemic coverage, but they are mainly against gram negative bacteria and moderately against gram positive bacteria. All this nalidixic acid and sinoxacin. Then comes the second generation of fluoroquinolone. Second generation is norfloxacin, ciprofloxacin, ofloxacin, levofloxacin. So all these drugs are very commonly used in enteric infections, in gastrointestinal infections, where the gastrointestinal infection caused by different bacteria causing diarrhea. So they are very much effective against all these enteric infections, expanding against gram negative coverage. So they are mostly caused by gram negative bacteria, the infections. So norfloxacin, ciprofloxacin, ofloxacin, they are used at. Ciprofloxacin is also used in the eye drops in the tropical use. Okay, atypical pathogen are covered by all this, and limited gram positive coverage are there. So first generation is mostly the gram positive coverage, less gram negative coverage. Second generation is mostly gram negative coverage and less gram positive coverage. The third generation, gatifloxacin, okay, sprarfloxacin, gripafloxacin, okay, they retain gram negative coverage, improved gram positive coverage. So basically from second to the third generation, the gram negative coverage is as same as the second generation of fluoroquinolones, but along with that gram positive coverage is also present. Improved gram positive coverage is present. So this is much broader spectrum, the third generation of fluoroquinolones, example gatifloxacin. And the atypical pathogen coverage is also present. The fourth generation, moxifloxacin, trovafloxacin, gemifloxacin. So all these examples, they maintain gram negative coverage, improve gram positive coverage, and they also add anaerobic coverage. So the unique thing is that they add anaerobic coverage. The fourth generation fluoroquinolones, they have gram positive, gram negative coverage as well as anaerobic coverage. So these are the four different classes of fluoroquinolones, and all these four classes, they have the specific roles to play. And I told you that they are being used in all the different directions. They're being used in the soft tissue infections, they're being used in the UTIs, they're being used in the tropical applications, in the eye drops, they're being used quite predominantly, particularly second generation one, in the enteric infections. So mechanism of action for fluoroquinolones. This is something unique about the fluoroquinolones because this is the only antibiotic that we are talking about. They have a DNA synthesis as a target. So basically they directly degrade the DNA. Okay, so basically they blocks the DNA synthesis by destroying the DNA. They block two different enzymes that are required for the bacteria to have a proper DNA structure and proper maintenance of the DNA in the cell. That is, one is DNA gyrase and topoisomerase 4. Both of these enzymes are needed for the DNA replication process to complete in the bacterial cell. The reason behind it is that in bacterial cell they have this circular DNA and they have the supercoiling in the DNA. So in order to access the DNA for DNA replication, they need to unwind the DNA, and that causes strain in the DNA. And this gyrase and topoisomerase, this particular type of enzyme, topoisomerase, they actually reduce this kind of supercoiling. Okay, they help the cell, they help this bacterial DNA to unwind and properly what we can say undone the supercoiling that is present there, and that is prerequisite for the replication fork to move in the forward direction. So what happens is that if the gyrase and topoisomerase 4 functions are hampered, that may lead to the problem in the DNA replication. And what exactly this fluoroquinolone do is that, topoisomerase 4 or DNA gyrase, they have two different functions. So basically, if I show you the picture, let's say let me draw the picture like this. It may take some time for me to draw it properly. Let's assume like that. Okay, so this is the DNA, and what happens is that in this case, basically, let's say this is the normal situation of DNA, that this DNA is being, let's say, wrapped and have a supercoiling. So these are two strands of the DNA, but they are wrapped and supercoiled like this. Okay, two different positions where they have a supercoiling, for example. Now this gyrase and topoisomers, what they do is that they cleave both the strands of the DNA, pass one strand and reduces the supercoil like that. This is how it will look after the use of this topoisomerase 4 or let's say gyrase. Now what is the problem here is that they have these two different functions. One, they will cut double strand of the DNA and then pass the other strand through it and religate that double strand. So they need a nuclease activity. And second one, nuclease means the degradation of the phosphodiester backbone. Okay, breakage of the backbone, that is nuclease activity. And then they also have a ligase function. They don't need other enzymes, they have both this function packed inside of it, these enzymes. So if we use these fluoroquinolones, what fluoroquinolones do is that fluoroquinolones hamper the ligase function of this enzyme, so it will prevent the ligase function. So they will render this gyrase and topoisomerase 4 as a nuclease only, because the ligase function of these enzymes are prevented, blocked. So this time, once the same bacterial cell is treated with fluoroquinolone drugs, fluoroquinolone antibiotic, it will convert the DNA gyrase and topoisomerase 4 into a nuclease type of enzyme. They simply cut the DNA. So as a result of which we end up in DNA, which is a cut version of the DNA, and that is no way involved in the process of DNA replication in the further process. So that is the end of the DNA replication, that is the end of the bacterial growth. Okay, this is how the mechanism of action is done, that causes to the DNA damage and leading to the cell death. Okay, here you can see this picture is already placed here, supercoiled DNA, and they cut it to make a relaxed DNA. And what happens to topoisomerase 4 and gyrase, they do this all these things. Okay, in this animated segment we are going to see the role of fluoroquinolone in the process of killing bacterial cell. Fluoroquinolone kills the bacterial cell by degrading important component, that is DNA. Okay, why and how it does that? See, to understand that, you need to understand the different conformation of the DNA in a bacterial cell, that is starting with the relaxed state, because bacterial chromosome is a circular one, so it's a relaxed state in a circular state. Now this form is not always okay to be stored in the cell, so this relaxed form is converted to supercoiled state. And there are two kinds of supercoil. One is the positive supercoil, interwounding on itself, and a negative supercoil. You can see the way we draw the 8, it's like a 8, but the way we draw it, we have a positive and negative supercoil. Now there are enzymes, particularly gyrase or gyrase, whatever you say, DNA gyrase, as well as topoisomerase. Gyrase and topoisomerase are the enzymes that can convert this. So gyrase can convert positive supercoiled DNA to the relaxed state, and topoisomerase type 4 can convert the positive supercoiled DNA to the relaxed state. So both gyrase and topo 4 can convert plus or positive supercoiled DNA to the relaxed state, which is needed in the process of DNA replication and all these other important events. On the other hand, gyrase can also convert the relaxed state into negatively supercoiled state of the DNA. Okay, so gyrase's goal is to convert positive supercoil to the relaxed and relaxed to the negative supercoiled state, while topo 4 can convert positive supercoil to the relaxed state and also negative supercoil to the relaxed state. So topo 4 only relaxes the DNA. Now what happens with fluoroquinolone is that the fluoroquinolone is going to prevent this conversion of positive supercoiled DNA into relaxed form, which is needed for the cell as a prerequisite for the DNA replication process, because if the DNA is present in the supercoiled state, then the replication fork machinery cannot move forward, and that is really important, that at this moment this supercoiled structure must be relieved to relaxed state in order to use that portion of the DNA for the DNA replication. So fluoroquinolone drugs will inhibit the gyrase activity, inhibit the topo 4 activity, and thus it will prevent the relaxation of plus stranded supercoiled DNA into the relaxed state. Okay, that's how the fluoroquinolone works. So in other word, what we can say in very simple word is that the gyrase or topoisomerase 4, they have this nature of cleaving both the strands of the DNA and passing the other DNA through it and religate it. But so for that purpose, they need to have a endonuclease activity, they need to have a ligase activity. What fluoroquinolone does is that it prevents the ligase activity or ligase function of gyrase. So what happens is that gyrase, although can cleave the DNA, but fails to ligate it or religate it. Thus, conversion of the supercoiled state to the relaxed state is prohibited, prevented, and that causes the cell to die ultimately. But this process is prevented by these enzymes. So what are the clinical uses now? You can see that fluoroquinolones are used in multidisciplinary places. So it acts as a antiprotozoal drug against Plasmodium falciparum, Trypanosoma brucei, sorry, and Toxoplasma gondii. It is also used as antimycobacterial because mycobacterium is the target here. And apart from this antibacterial and anti-atypical pathogen activity, fluoroquinolones are also being used as a anti-cancer drug and immunomodulatory drug. So immunomodulation can be done, particularly anti-inflammatory response is triggered, and it causes cytokine production. It also effective against LPS induced lung injury in mice. So this is what we can say, that the fluoroquinolones acting as an immunomodulatory drug, it can act as an anti-cancer drug, and apart from that they also obviously have the antiprotozoal and antimycobacterial activities. Okay, so the clinical activity in respiration, we can use it in anthrax and TB. Both are equally important diseases where we can use that. In gastrointestinal and abdominal infections, we widely use particularly the second generation fluoroquinolones. In prostatitis, it's being used. In urinary tract infection, it's being used. In sexually transmitted diseases, particularly in chlamydia infection, we use it. So these are some big uses, you know, in some really clinically important diseases where we can use them. So what are the side effects of fluoroquinolone antibiotics? So the side effects goes like two types of, one is the gastrointestinal side effect and another one is the CNS, central nervous system type. So gastrointestinal type including nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pain, constipation, heartburn, and apart from that the vaginal itching or discharge can be one more type of side effect that is linked with it. And the CNS, central nervous system, can be targeted by this drug as a side effect, and that includes headache, restlessness, dizziness, drowsiness, insomnia, polyneuropathy, hallucination, agitation, seizure, all these things which are related to the CNS disturbance, which is also being present there. So these are these two types of side effects that we can generally see. The CNS kind of side effect is not that common, it's rare though. The more common side effect is the gastrointestinal side effects, which are well tolerated, but it can be managed quite well as well. Okay, but if we use this for long time and for beyond the dosage that is recommended, it can have some sort of CNS defects and CNS problems, which are reversible in nature. It's not like it will be reversible, they are reversible in nature. Okay, so this is all about fluoroquinolone antibiotics. I believe you have a clear understanding of fluoroquinolone antibiotic mechanism of action and fluoroquinolone side effects, fluoroquinolone use. If you like this video, please hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to this channel to get more and more videos like that in future. Thank you. Bye.